Hi ladies, are you making any of these 10 critical mistakes that end up undermining you and your credibility and what you have to say when you are at work?
Hi, this is Ivna here from AssertiveWay.com, and I can't wait to share these tips with you because these are going to be game changer for you. When you learn how to be more intentional and elevate what you say and elevate yourself so that other people can see you for the value that you have, for who you are and what you have to contribute in a way that feels absolutely natural and true to your, you could stay true to yourself, but just avoiding certain things that we grew up thinking that were polite, that were the nice things to do, when in fact, in male-dominated cultures or in places with that cultures or at work, most workplaces were created by men, right? Before women entered the workforce. So the cultures are not very women friendly, unfortunately. And that's why we need to change just a few little things that we do that can undermine us and how people view us. And it just, these tiny little adjustments, these 10 little mistakes that you can instantly start changing, that will profoundly transform how people treat you. I've done it, I've seen it, I've tested all these myself, and it makes a massive difference. So are you ready? Let's get straight into it.
I want to help you guys because I've gone through this as well. If you feel like guys are generally not taking you seriously at work, there are a couple of things that could be playing a role, and I'm going to explain to you why. First of all, we know that a lot of the culture that in the workplace was created for men, right? Because women were not in the workplace initially. It was quite uncommon. And so all the corporate culture and just work culture in general is very male dominated. It favors male characteristics, alpha male kind of thinking and ways of being, dominance and speaking out loud and being overconfident. Those are things that are valued in the workplace, unfortunately, just because of the way historically this all played out, where men were creating the cultures in the companies that we work at right now. So now we have more women representation, but the culture in the workplace is still very male dominant heavy, and that does not favor us women. So it makes it quite difficult for us to thrive, and there are these sort of little things that we do that make it worse for us, and that's what we'll begin to talk about. So if you feel like guys question everything that you do, they question your credibility, they undermine your smartness, your intelligence, to what you share, your thoughts, your ideas, they steal your ideas in meetings, they interrupt you, and they don't pay attention at what you're saying. Even guys with less experience, with smaller titles, even heck, your employees, right? That can happen. Do you feel like you have to constantly prove yourself or be better or do things in a special way just to be taken seriously at work by your male colleagues and coworkers? The thing is, there is gender bias, there is sexism still, and those things are going to be with us for a while. And it's a hard and negative fact that we just need to deal with in the best possible way. And I want to help you do that. And being, if you're the only woman in the room, or once you start moving up the corporate ladder as well, or if you get into certain industries, there might be a lot more guys than women, so you don't have that much support from women. It can get really hard. But I want to share with you that you have to think about in terms of perceived credibility, because that's not always your actual credibility. You might have amazing credibility with diplomas and experience and capability and results, but the perceived credibility might still not be there. While if some guys are really good at not having much to show, like not having a lot of actual deliverables and experience, but they are able to increase their perceived credibility a lot. And what we do sometimes is we undermine our credibility in ways that are not helpful to us, unfortunately, and we do it and we don't even think about it. It just kind of happens automatically. The other thing is that in these male-dominated company cultures, almost all company cultures or workplaces, like I said, have this male culture that favors dominance and confidence, not as much competence. Even if you're super competent, right, you know how women often have a lot of imposter syndrome, that men are looking for, men see value, or they believe more, or they promote more other people that have high confidence. And on top of that, women have the issue where if you project too much confidence, right, then you have that backlash effect that could happen, and you're not liked as much. So it's very challenging. I totally get it. Now, there are a couple of things that you need to do then, just small adjustments, right? Avoiding some simple mistakes that will preserve your credibility, will preserve that confidence level without going overboard, without feeling unnatural, without feeling like it's not you, that you're not being true to yourself, right? This is just small, tiny little adjustments that you can start implementing right now, right? They're very simple, just avoiding some easy mistakes, and that way it's not going to detract from your perceived credibility and from your strength, so that the guys won't interrupt you as much, will respect you more, they will listen to you more, they will pay attention to what you have to say, they will value your opinions more, and you're gonna just feel much better and more appreciated and more recognized just by changing these small things, these 10 little mistakes that make a huge difference, right? And this is irrespective of you being, you're super smart and capable, and these guys still don't take you seriously, but this is going to help. And that way you don't have to keep proving yourself. You don't have to change your style. And when you make these small changes and you avoid these 10 mistakes, you're going to start to notice, like I said, that they're going to respect you more, listen to you more, take you more seriously. And at the same time, you can find ways to be friendly, kind, and warm that don't accidentally undermine your perceived competence. Not that you don't have competence. You're competent. We know that. You know what you're doing. Women are very good at that. It's the perception that guys have of us, right, that we're trying to manage here. So I want to ask you, I want to go through this presentation, and I want you to think about, are you making these mistakes that accidentally undermine you and the value you have to bring to the table, and your ideas and your thoughts and your contribution and your credibility? Okay? Number one, and some of these you're going to recognize. Number one is apology, right? When do you apologize for speaking up, for sharing an opinion, for sharing what you want? And it's known, studies show that women tend to apologize more than men. And the thing is, when you say sorry a lot, it does come across as less confident. It does come across as less capable, and it does come across as being less sure of yourself. And apologizing when you disagree or when you're making a request is not the same as showing that you're polite, right? It's going to cost you respect and credibility, and it's going to invite other people to challenge you, right? Invite a lot of the guys to challenge what you have to say. And I'm going to go as far as to say, and I've seen stories around this from women, right, from women executives, that when they noticed that guys made a mistake, they would still frame it as a positive thing and as a learning opportunity rather than apology. And not only did that work perfectly for them, but they were seen as a leader because they did that. Because instead of overly apologizing for their mistake, they were like, oh wow, I'm learning from this, and we can all learn from this, and there's a huge opportunity in the horizon. So it's just shifting that frame of how you frame something that you said, something that you did, a message that you have, from negative, which is apology is negative, to something positive. So here are some typical things that women, we apologize for, that is probably not useful for you to apologize. You don't have to apologize for these things. And yeah, it could be a little bit controversial, but if you start to observe the men around you that are taken seriously, how often do they apologize, right? There are certain things that you do want to apologize for. You want to apologize if you hurt somebody accidentally, something really affected other people in a really negative way, but not with these things. Now, let me break it down for you. When you ask a question, when you don't understand something and you ask a question, so you say, hey, I'm sorry, but I have a question. No, you don't have to be sorry to have a question. It's your right to have a question. We talk a lot about your rights, and it's important to think about what are your rights. And if something is your right, you do not have to apologize. You're not infringing upon anybody else's rights, right? So asking for a question, you just ask. You don't say, I'm sorry, but I have a question. You say, I have a question. Disagreement, that's another thing. Instead of saying something like, oh, I'm sorry, but I have a different view, or I'm sorry, but I have another idea, remember that you are entitled to disagree. We are humans and we disagree. Teams are best when people disagree openly, and you don't have to apologize for it. You're actually adding value by disagreeing. Disagreeing is a good thing. And people in the workplace, they expect disagreement. They view disagreement as something positive because it's a form of contribution, you see? So you do not have to apologize for disagreeing. You just say, hey, I have a different view. Here's what it is. Or I have another idea. Again, there are many ways to demonstrate that you care about others and you value their opinions and thoughts, acknowledge them, validate them, appreciate them, but you don't want to undermine yourself to do that. You don't want to bring yourself down. No, you keep yourself high and you elevate others. Now, this presentation is not about how to elevate others, right? That's a whole different topic. But what I want to share with you in this presentation is how not to bring yourself down. You got to keep yourself elevated and then elevate others. Here's another thing that you don't want to apologize for. You don't want to apologize for bothering other people, or for when you think you're bothering other people. When you show up in their meeting, when you want to ask them for something, when you knock on their door, when you ask even for a favor, you don't say, hey, I'm sorry to bother you. Like you just delete that phrase altogether, because it brings negativity. You see, we're trying to avoid the negativity. Because when you approach people, you're giving them the opportunity to support you as well. Or you're coming in to exchange something, ideas, thoughts, whatever it is. Here's something else that you don't want to apologize for. You don't want to apologize for requests. It's your right to make requests, to ask for something. So when you say, I'm sorry, but I want to ask you for a favor, right? That's diminishing yourself, and that's making that favor negative. Allow the person to enjoy helping you, giving you a helping hand, saying yes to that favor. So instead of dragging the whole thing down, just say, I'd love to ask you for a favor. Now, again, there's so many ways to elevate it further and elevate the other person, and that's what you want to do. That's not what I'm talking about here, but just know how to not drag it down, the energy down, by apologizing when you make a request. And then finally, and this is the controversial one, when you make a mistake. And the thing is, you got to always think about alternatives to how to deal with a mistake that you made. Because we all make mistakes. But the thing is, if you're a woman, it's going to be magnified automatically, right? Just because you're a woman, it could happen that your mistake is just going to be naturally more magnified. People are going to notice it more. And you don't want to make it even a bigger deal than it is, right? By putting more fire into it. So when you say things like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I made this mistake. I promise I'm never ever going to make it again." You see how that sounds like it almost elevates the mistake. It makes the mistake worse than it is because you're making a big deal out of it. So other people are going to naturally be invited to make a big deal out of it. And that's not going to help you at all. And it's not going to help your other female colleagues either. So try to avoid apologizing. It's just better. And let's say if you're having a conversation with someone, I'm just going to give you some examples from the same conversation as we go through these 10 mistakes so that you can see how it all plays together. So if you start a conversation saying, "Hey, I'm sorry to bother you at this late time," right? You don't have to say that. You don't have to say, "I'm sorry to bother you." Those two things, you don't have to say that you're bothering them. You don't have to say that you're sorry. Number 2 mistake that can undermine you at work is minimizing your view. So do you minimize what you're about to say with a tone that is undermining and tentative around your credibility, with an introduction to what you have to say that brings it down? Like I said, we want to avoid anything that brings you and your value and your contributions and your goodness down, or your energy down. So for example, let me give you some examples of what this looks like. Let's say right before you share something, you share an idea, you share a thought, you share anything, you say, "Oh, I'm not sure, but," or "I'm not an expert, but, this is not a great idea, but here's my thought," or "I might be wrong, but here let me have a go at it," or "This is probably so stupid, but let me say it anyways," or "You may not agree with this, but here's the deal." All of those introductions, you're adding words, and you're starting off by undermining what you have to say. And you've probably heard this before, but I want you to pay attention to what you say. And are you ever using these expressions? Are you ever undermining with a negative introduction to what you're about to say? Right? You need to just cut that off completely. Just let it be silent for a moment, and then you can speak up. So here's an example. "Hey, I may be wrong. It's just an idea, but I thought I might as well get it out there." Right? There's a lot of words that are not adding value. And what is that going to do? It's distracting. And not only is it distracting, it's going to immediately send a message that, "Oh, this is not that important. You don't have to listen or pay attention to me. Or even if you do listen to me, don't take it seriously." So avoid mistake number 2, which is minimizing what you have to say. Mistake number 3 that can undermine you and minimize what you have to offer and say and your value is using the word "just" in the wrong way. Right? So the adverb "just," when you include that a lot in your vocabulary, when it means perhaps or possibly, not when it means like a small amount, but when it means perhaps or possibly, it comes across as you not having confidence, you not having certainty. And like we talked about, most people are looking for confidence and certainty. I've seen it so many times at work. Like, these dudes had no idea what they were talking about, but they projected so much confidence and certainty that even when they were wrong, people respected them just because of their confidence and certainty. Not that they were really confident, but that they projected confidence. So all we're trying to do is avoid the things that make you go the opposite direction. So what does that look like? When you say something like, "This is just an idea," it sounds like it's just like a small, insignificant idea. It's just an idea. Or "I just want to say that." or I just like to say that. Now it comes across as, oh, this small little thing that I want to say, it's so small that you don't even have to pay attention to it. That's the message, that's the feeling that's coming across. So another thing that is similar to that you also want to avoid is the word actually. For example, I actually think differently about this. Right? Because again, it's just adding that element of, okay, this is actually, but generally it's not actually, so the certainty is not there. It's confusing and it doesn't add value. It doesn't add the confidence and the certainty to what you're saying. So what's best? Just remove those just and actually, and just go straight into your comment or whatever you have to say. So for example, if you say, I just wanted to say that I have a very different perspective on it. Instead, you just give your new perspective. Mistake number 4 that can undermine you and undermine your credibility and your thoughts and your contribution and your value is when you stop speaking when you're interrupted. Now, this might sound strange to you, but here's what's happened. Here's what sometimes happens, right? And all of this stuff I experienced because when I was working beforehand, before I was in this, I created Assertive Way, I was very much in meetings all day long, and I would get interrupted a lot by guys. And I would also notice how other people were interrupting them and how they reacted to that situation, how they responded to that situation. So when you get interrupted, do you lower your volume? Do you look away? Do you stop your sentence halfway through, kind of in an automatic default mode? Because that's what I mean when you stop speaking when you're interrupted. And when you do that, you're basically signaling hesitation, and you're saying something like, oh, listen to them. Their opinion is more important than mine because they're more important than me. That's why I stopped speaking when they interrupted me, even though they did something wrong. I'm allowing them to speak. So I know this sounds like you're trying to be polite, right? A lot of this we do because we're trying to be polite, but it's not interpreted as politeness. That's the problem. And there are, like I said, many other ways to be polite, but this is not the best one, right? That's just going to invite other people to keep interrupting you because they interrupted once and you're yielding to them, right? So they're going to interrupt you again and again and again. So what I advise here is just to finish your sentence in full normal volume. They interrupted you, they have to wait. They might be speaking at the same time, but I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's incredibly uncomfortable to keep speaking when someone starts speaking. But just hold. You don't even have to finish everything you were going to say, but at least finish that one single sentence you're in. Just that sentence. Right? I've experimented a lot with this in the past where I realized when I would cut my sentence off, and then the people that were actually paying attention to me, they would get confused. They're like, oh my gosh, and then they would look away. But when I completed my sentence, the people that were paying attention to me, they would stay with me. Even if other people were speaking at the same time, they would stay with me until I finished my sentence. So you want to honor the people that are paying attention to you in that moment, without looking down, without losing your volume. So another example, oh, what I was saying, hey, what I was saying, oh, okay. And then you kind of pause and let it go, right? You just want to keep going, keep sharing your beautiful voice because your voice matters, all right? Number 5, mistake that we as women make, which undermines our credibility, our value, is asking for permission. Do you ask for permission to do what you need to do to be successful, even if it's not hurting anyone or being a problem with anyone, right? People who ask for permission are generally seen as being less powerful, less competent, and more of the subordinate type. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if you're trying to earn respect from people, get heard, be taken seriously, then asking for permission in the wrong context can really undermine you. So when you say things like, can I do this, or may I, or is it okay? I did a lot. I did this a lot, right? It's very hard to change a habit. These are habits. These are politeness habits that we learn as a child growing up that work very well for us when we're young, but then in the workplace, they work against us. But now we already have this bad habit. So what you want to do is, for certain things, you just want to communicate what you think, what you want, what you're going to do. And I think there's a quote that says something around, it's easier to ask for forgiveness later than ask for permission, because when you ask for permission, you're giving the person power to say no. And immediately you're signaling, you're more powerful than me, and I'll let you make the decisions. Now, of course, if you're dealing with your boss, that's different. You know what you can and you can't do, right? You can even explore that. But what I'm talking about is with other people that are not your boss, for example. And even with your boss, there are ways of not asking for permission explicitly and getting through your message across. So remember, when you ask for permission, you increase the chances of other people saying no, because now they have an opportunity to say no. And if the other person has an issue with whatever you're doing, what you want, they're going to let you know. And you can always respond to how people react afterwards. You can always kind of fix things in a way if it comes up later. But in my experience and what I've been seeing is that doesn't happen. Like, if you're confident, if you know what you're doing, and if you can justify it in a good way, if it ever comes up, it's not going to be an issue. Very few times is an issue if you just go ahead to do the right thing. Now let me give you some examples of things that we often ask for permission and that we, in most cases, shouldn't be asking for permission. Number one, opinions, right? And again, this is your absolute right to ask to have an opinion. So when you say, can I share my view? It's the same thing, right? You're undermining your opinion, and this is your right. You have got to remember, these things are your right. You're entitled to have an opinion and to speak up, to say it out loud. Instead, just share your opinion in meetings and gatherings. Even if there are people that are more senior than you, it's okay to share your opinion. If someone's uncomfortable with it, they'll let you know. So you could say something, hey, I've noticed this, or I've observed that, or whatever it is that your opinion is. Number two thing that you don't want to ask for permission most of the time is around opportunities. So for example, if you say something like, hey, may I participate on this project? Yeah, sure, it sounds polite. It sounds like the right thing to do, right? Well, instead of asking for permission to engage in new opportunities, you can do something different. And again, I'm trying to show you how to speak up in a way that will get you better results, that will get people to really take you seriously. You can either say how you're going to get involved, what value you can add, or how you feel about it and why you want to be part of that opportunity. So you're being more of taking on an active role in negotiating your way toward that opportunity versus, oh, I'm in this small little thing that I'm going to ask you permission to engage in this opportunity. What does this look like? If you say, for example, instead of may I participate in this project, if you say, I'd love to work on this project because of XYZ, right? Or here's how I can help out with this project. Here's the value I can add to this project. You see how that totally changes, like the confidence, the energy, it's positive, it's freeing, it's just powerful, like powerful woman speaking in that moment. So you don't have to ask for permission. You can show how you can add value and how that's going to be meaningful to you and to others. Okay, you can also sometimes when you ask for permission with requests, so you might say, is it okay if I ask you for something? Right? You want to ask, we talked about requests as well. This is a different way of undermining yourself. Instead, just ask for what you want and then give them the opportunity to decide if they're going to assist you, if they're going to help you out or not. remember that, again, it's your right. You have the right to ask, to make a request for whatever it is, even if it sounds crazy. I've done this many times. And leverage that. So you can say, instead of, is it okay if I ask you for something, you can say, I'd really appreciate if you could help me with X. You see how you're elevating it? Versus, is it okay if I ask you for something? I'd really appreciate if you help me with X. Another thing that you don't want to ask for permission that much, because it's going to undermine you, is decisions. So when you say something like, can I have a day off? I mean, it sounds perfectly natural, right? Can I have the day off? Can I take this time off for vacation? Sounds natural, right? Like that you're going to say that to your boss. But I want to challenge you to think differently. Think of how can you elevate what you're saying to increase the chances of that actually being taken seriously, being heard, and getting across in the right way. So for example, if you have a personal time available, you can firmly express the intention that you have, and think about, obviously you're thinking about the other person. You want to have do this ahead of time with enough notice period. So you might say something like, instead of, can I have the day off? You might say something like, oh, I'm planning on taking this day off. One is passive. Can I take this day off? It's passive. You're like, oh, you decide. It's all up to you. The other one is, this is what I want. This is what I'm pretty much decided on, and I'm just running it past you now. Right? I'm planning on taking this day off, or I need this day off, or I'd like this day off. You're owning that moment. You're owning that decision. You're owning that desire. You're owning that request. You're owning that opportunity. You're owning that opinion. This is about ownership, you see. Can I have the day off is not ownership. I need this day off is ownership. One more example, when you don't want to ask for permission, is when you ask for a raise. You don't have to say, can I have a raise? Please, can I have a raise? I know it sounds polite, and we do this for politeness, but I want to challenge you right now. I want to challenge your thinking, because these things can be holding you back, can be influencing how people perceive you. When you say, can I have a raise, it doesn't come across as mature. It can come across as entitled. Listen to me. This can come across as entitled. I've had people, employees, actually say that to me, for example. And it comes across in the wrong way. If you're a manager and this ever happened to you, you know what I'm saying. So you want to have a stronger positioning, right? And build a case for your raise or your promotion instantly, not ask for permission. So instead of saying, can I have a raise? You want to say, hey, here's why I am ready for this new opportunity, for this new position, for this new thing. It's way more powerful to state things and why you believe it's the case than just ask for it. I hope you're capturing the difference here between ownership of your opinion, opportunity, request, decision, and asking for a raise versus just asking for permission, like you would do with a school teacher, right? You're at school, you're like, hey teacher, is it okay? Can I or may I step outside or leave? That's what you do with authority figures when you're young. But I want to challenge you to think not of authority figures as someone that you have to ask permission for, but someone that you can negotiate with, that you can work with as almost as an equal. Sure, they might have the ultimate decision making, but you have way more power and influence than you think you have. Right? So if you say, oh, is it okay if I share my view on this project's goal? That's not going to work. That's not going to help you. Number 6 mistake that you want to avoid that undermines you and your competence and your value is introducing your opinions. When you start with things like, I think that, or I feel that, or my opinion is, It makes sense, right? You're like, I'm introducing my opinion. What's wrong with that? The problem is it makes you seem like you don't have expertise or decisiveness when you say that, when you don't go straight to your point. So you got to remember that whenever you say something, when you speak up, when you share an opinion, people are going to naturally assume that it's your opinion. You're not just coming up. It's not coming from somewhere else. Whatever you say is your opinion, unless you say that it's not your opinion. It's coming from somewhere else. So you don't have to explain that you're about to share your opinion. You see what I'm saying? You just share it. So the introduction of opinions is not going to work. It's much better to just state what you have to say, because that's going to look powerful. It's going to look more confident. We talked about how important confidence is for credibility perception, and it's going to get people to immediately pay attention to you. You don't have to start with the introduction. That is distraction. So just say it. And here are some other statements that you can use to start your opinion. So instead of saying things like, I feel that, I think that, my opinion is, try, I expect this to happen, or I'm convinced that this is going to happen. I'm sure, or I'm certain about this. I know as a fact, or I know this, or my research shows this. Right? Anything like that shows that you're a lot more certain, and it's not just an opinion. Now you're adding extra cookie points of certainty to your statement. Or you just say what you have to say straight. So no, I think we should. Number 7 mistake that we make, and that comes across in the wrong way, that undermines us as women, is using tags. Do you use tags? What are tags? There are questions or question-like little endings to a statement that kind of look like this. This is a way forward, isn't it? You see that little, isn't it? Little question at the end. Or, we need to focus on this, okay? Like you can tell it's a question by the intonation at the end. So you add that little ending. Or does this make sense? Right, so what that means is, what comes across when you use these tags is that you are not confident about what you're saying, and that you need validation, that you need confirmation from other people. You need approval. And that comes across as, yeah, you're not that sure of yourself, right? And even if you are not sure of yourself, you want to sound sure of yourself, because otherwise that can be interpreted as lacking confidence. Especially if you're around, like there's more than one person, it's a presentation or it's a meeting or something like that, you want to avoid that. Or if it's an interview. Here's another variation of using tags. Am I making sense? So you say whatever you say, and it's like, does this make sense? Is this making sense? And it sounds like it's a polite thing to do. You're inclusive. Like women do this a lot, right? You're dialoguing. You're trying to be inclusive, but it comes across as maybe you're not making sense. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe you're a crazy woman. You don't know what you're talking about. So I know that we don't say it with that intention, but it comes across that way sometimes. And so, especially with guys, right? So instead you can say, what's your view on this? So am I making sense? No, what's your view on this? Let me know. So now you're encouraging participation, dialogue, but without making yourself look less competent or not knowing what you're talking about or less certain. Okay, are you ready for the number 8? Number 8 mistake that may undermine you is over-justification. And when you over-justify yourself, again, similar things, your opinions, your mistakes, your behaviors, your choices, that can be interpreted as lacking certainty, confidence, and diminishing yourself. Like who over-justifies anything that other people might not approve of, right? People that are insecure about the situation, or when they're ranked below the other person. That's when you over-justify. Like you have to justify yourself to the teacher, to the professor, to your parent, right? It's sending a signal that you're lowering your power in that moment. You're playing low. And strategically, you might want to do that sometimes, but I want you to be conscious about it and intentional about it. If you don't want to play low, if you don't want your vibes to be low in terms of power, positioning, then at least you know that you can avoid these things. If in a certain situation you are okay with that, you're okay, and you want to play low power for whatever reason that is, like, yeah, with someone who doesn't have that much power, you want them to make them feel more comfortable, whatever it is, you can do that, but I just want you to be aware of when this generally doesn't make sense for you, right? For you to catch yourself doing this and to avoid it if it's going to undermine you. So for example, if you made a mistake, if you arrived late to a meeting, if you missed a deadline, if you fell short of, or you think you fell short of their expectations, if you want to take time off and feel kind of guilty about it, if you need to leave work early to take care of a sick child and you don't feel good about it, if you change your mind around an important decision, you don't need to over-justify yourself. I used to do this all the time. Give 10,000 excuses or make a massive, big excuse with all the details. You don't have to say that. You don't have to over-justify. And you don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to sacrifice yourself unnecessarily, right? For no reason other than you feel guilty and bad. And because when you and I see this from women a lot, right? And I do that. I did it a lot. You get into the story why your child is sick, and then this happened, and then the dog did this, and the painting of the house, and then food got spoiled, and all the mess happened. You don't have to give all the details. While the world is falling apart, no, you need your time. You need to do something. Something happened. It's okay. Don't bring too much focus and attention to it. Because it can also be misinterpreted as not only your power is lower, but also as an excuse. The more you justify something, I'm not saying not to justify, but if you over-justify, you make it too much of a big deal, it can come across as an excuse. Or it's just going to give people munition and material to try to challenge you and to use it against you. So you just choose one. If you have like 10 justifications, just choose one. And pick your favorite, keep it short, nothing too long, one sentence, and then move on. Don't dwell on it and let it go. That's it. Simple, simple, simple. So for example, you want to say something like, hey, I wanted to come earlier, but oh my gosh, my dog got so sick and my kids were going nuts all around the house today because the teacher didn't show up, and so I had to deal with entertaining them all day long and this and that and that. No, that's not working. That's not working with you. That's not helping you. You see? You just keep it simple. Mistake number 9 that can undermine you is uptalk. Uptalk. Do you uptalk? What is uptalk? It's also called upspeak. It's when you rise your intonation or your pitch at the end of when you say something that's more of a declaration or a statement, as if it were a question. So we talked about adding little questions at the end of the statement, but this is a little bit different. It's like when you change the intonation at the end that sounds like a question when it should be a statement. So for example, if you say something like, and this is like a halfway in between a question when you're asking for permission and in having the little tag at the end. So when you say things like, I'm going to take the day off, or we should go forward with this, should we? We should. It's even hard to do sometimes. We should go forward with this, or I don't like how you treated me. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to take the day off is actually I'm going to take the day off. We should go forward with this is actually we should go forward with this. I don't like how you treated me is I don't like how you treated me. When you shift the intonation to the question mark, like many of the things that we've been talking about, that's going to undermine you. It's going to undermine what you have to say. It's going to undermine your authority because it's going to sound like you're asking for permission. So it's going to come across as insecure, lacking confidence, and even unprofessional. So just finish your statement as a statement. Don't add the little question at the end, and just keep it simple. And finally, here's another mistake that we do, and I've seen it so much, and I've actually done it as well before I realized that it was not good, it was a problem. And again, we do it because we want to be nice, and we want to be kind, and we want to show that we care, but it's not the best way to do it, right? To show that we care. And that is becoming the office mom. Becoming the office mom. And especially if you're one of the there's not that many women in the department, or women in your level, you might feel tempted and even pushed to become the nurturing team caretaker and do things that signal that you're the office mom. And what does that look like? That means bringing in treats and sweets for everyone, and cake and sweet muffins and cookies, freshly baked. It means putting a lot of time and emphasis compared to other people, organizing office birthdays and team events. It means grabbing coffee for everyone, or taking many notes in the meeting, being the note taker and sharing it with everybody afterwards, or being the empathetic listener that hears everybody's personal issues, and you're always open, your doors are always open at all the times to listen to the complaints and sad stories that people, and complaints in the issues and the drama that people are going through. Or to patiently listen to people vent off all of their work frustrations for a long time. That is the office mom. Here's a mistake that I made as an office mom. I was really interested in helping. There's a new team, a new big structure, right? Department that was being created, and I offered myself to be. It took a lot of work to help create a positive, nice, inclusive culture within the teams, to build the culture. So I had a culture committee, and I had meetings, and I put presentations together, and did an excellent job. And then when it came time for the performance review, and my boss, who was a woman, said, even did a great job at building the culture here in her free time, the upper management said, I don't care about culture. I'm not going to reward someone to help with the culture. That's not important. Oh, and that was a man. So you just have to know that being the office mom is not going to help your authority position. And again, sometimes you want to do this with your team. You might want to do this. I did this with my team. But I didn't do this with higher ups, where I was visible with higher ups or across the other departments. I did this with my team. So you got to be strategic around when and how you do office mom activities. And otherwise people it's just happens. It's sad, but it happens, especially guys. They're going to have less respect for you. And it's not going to help you get more appreciation. Sometimes we think that we're going to be more appreciated when we do kind things for others like that, but that kind of thing is not going to get you more appreciation. And it's going to take you so much time. I felt like for me, I was working on the culture. It was great. I felt good about it, but it took so much time, and it took away from other activities that were actually considered more higher value by upper management. And it doesn't mean that you don't care about people. It's just about being more selective about how you do it in those mom activities in the office, and not taking all the care and responsibility. And knowing that this comes from the fact that you value your time, and you value what you have to offer as well. And also getting clear on what's considered high value work by upper management versus not high value, lower value work. Because if you think something's high value, I thought culture was high value, but my management didn't think so. So they weren't going to reward me for it. Now, if I'm okay with that, that's fine. But you gotta understand it, right? You gotta be intentional. High value work are the activities that will get you ahead. And so when you seek high value responsibilities, and you delegate or eliminate the low value ones, that's going to move you up and make you be heard and respected. So when you say things like, oh, hey, here's some freshly baked chocolate fudge cookies that I made this weekend for you. Have a try. Try it out. And you go around the office sharing it. That's the office mom. So putting it all together, I want to share a quick example that includes all of the things, all of the 10 mistakes that we've been talking about in an example of a conversation with a coworker. And then what it would look like without the mistakes. So let me say it once, and then I'll say it again with the pointing out the 10 mistakes, and then I'll give you the alternative version. So imagine this conversation where you're saying, I'm so sorry to bother you at this late time. I wanted to come earlier, but my dog got sick. My kids were going nuts all around the house today because the teacher didn't show up, and I had to deal with entertaining them all day long. Oh, by the way, here's some freshly baked chocolate fudge cookies that I made this weekend. Try them out. Is it okay if I share my view on this project's goals? I just wanted to say that I have a very different perspective on it. It may be wrong, but it's just an idea. And I thought I might as well get it out there. I think that we should... Hey, okay, what I was saying... No, Okay, let's go ahead with the project because it will help our brand grow. That makes sense, doesn't it? All right, did you see that? How did that feel for you as a listener to this conversation? Now let me break it down. I'm sorry to bother you at this late time. That's an apology. I wanted to come early, but my dog got sick. My kids were going nuts all around the house today because the teacher didn't show up and I had to deal with this entertaining them all day long. Over justification. Oh, by the way, here's some freshly baked chocolate fudge cookies I made this weekend. Try one out. That's the office mom speaking. Is it okay if I share my view on this project's goals? Asking for permission. I just wanted to say that I have a different perspective on it. Using just and minimizing your thought, your idea. It may be wrong, but it's just an idea, and I thought I might as well get it out there. Okay, it may be wrong, that's minimizing. It's just an idea, using just and minimizing, and I thought I might as well get it out there. It's justifying yourself. I think that is an introduction, and we should, and then stops is when she gets interrupted, is pausing, right? Stopping when you get interrupted. What I was saying, stops talking. Let's go ahead with the project because it will help our brand grow. Up talk. This makes sense, doesn't it? Tags. See how that plays out? So what could make this stronger? You'll be fascinated how short it gets. Here it goes. Hi, Joe. Regarding this project's goals, I have a different perspective. I'm certain that this project will help our brand grow. I suggest we go ahead with it. You see how that changed everything? Now, this requires probably some thinking ahead. You might have to, if you have something important to say, you might have to actually write it down and think about what you're going to say in the beginning. But once you get the hang of this, once this becomes a habit, it'll be so much easier for you. So much easier. It'll just come automatically, and you'll come across as someone who's confident, who knows what you're talking about, who is worthy of everything that you do and the value that you have, and people are going to finally see and recognize all that you are and all the wonderfulness that you do and your credibility and your ideas, and they're going to hear you out and they're going to take you seriously, because that's a massive difference in tone. You're not bringing yourself down, you're elevating whatever you have to say. And you have to elevate. No one's going to do it for you. You got to elevate yourself. So remember, these are the 10 mistakes that you want to stop doing immediately to protect your credibility from being undermined. Apologies, minimizing your view, saying just or actually, stop speaking when you get interrupted, asking for permission, introducing your opinions, using tags over justifying, using uptalk, or becoming the office mom. And what you can do is just get started. Just get started. Pick one and monitor yourself. The first thing that you need to do is figure out if you're using them. So, start just monitoring yourself and say, oh, am I using this? Did I use this today? Any of these? Did I do any of these today? And when you start gaining that awareness, that's the first step. And the next step, you're going to choose one thing and you're going to try to stop doing it for a whole week, maybe for a whole month. And then once you nail that one and it becomes a habit, you don't do it anymore, that mistake, then you pick another one. And by the end of 10 weeks or 10 months, you're done with this. These things are no longer part of your speaking habits. And immediately you're just going to have a boost in how people perceive you and treat you. It's fantastic. And I know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the tip of the iceberg of what is possible for you in terms of speaking up and being heard and being taken seriously. Because as a woman in the workforce, in a male-dominated or male culture-oriented place, work, because even if if you're working in a hospital that has a lot of women, still the culture was created by men originally. You're gonna have a lot of challenges. So I want you to stay tuned because I got some really exciting stuff coming up for Women's History Month, and I want you to be part of it to empower women like you and me in the workplace so that we can be heard, be respected, be elevated, and also help elevate the other women around us.
I hope you learned something new. I hope you're inspired to be more intentional about some of these things that you say, some of these behaviors that we have as women for the right reasons, but that come across in the wrong way. And I want you to start being very intentional about how you use these things in your work, in your career, so that you can elevate yourself, you can elevate other women around you, and you can be heard, be taken seriously, and be respected for the amazing woman that you are, and most importantly, so that you can matter, so that your voice can matter, and what you have to say, and your opinion, and your contribution can matter. Thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned because I have so much special stuff coming up for Women's History Month, and I'm so excited to be able to share with you guys very soon. If you know anyone that you think would like this content, please do send them over and have them subscribe to my newsletter at assertiveway.com, because I'll be sharing these things soon through my email list. So if you're there, you'll get this. Otherwise, please do subscribe so you get to get access to all the things I'm going to share. And yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for being here. Bye.